All right. So we have many Alices here. Let's go ahead and open up today's lesson. So because last week we had some technical difficulties, we're going to start with the reading portion that was supposed to be the beginning of last week before Skype decided that they needed to charge us for something that they'd been giving to us for free. So this is actually from Winston Churchill. So are you guys familiar with who Winston Churchill is?
Yes, guy in World War II.
What's that?
He was the guy in World War II.
Yes. So he was a British man in World War II, and he was one of the generals in the war. He was one of the people who helped inspire England to join the war in the first place. England was hesitant to join it, even though they had been attacked by Germany and the Axis forces many times. They didn't want to get involved in the war. They felt it was Central Europe's problem, not theirs. And Winston Churchill, he made a couple speeches that inspired people to basically go to war with the Axis powers. And this is one of those speeches there. So this is from an autobiography of Winston Churchill. Now I say autobiography, of course, because it was written by Churchill himself. So this is talking about Winston Churchill and his examinations. So it says at Harrow. Harrow is the name of the school that he went to when he was 12 years old. So it would be equivalent to our middle school, basically. So let's read a little bit, and I'll see if you guys can understand what he's talking about, and then we'll talk about some of the language used in it as well. So it had scarcely passed my 12th birthday when I entered the inhospitable regions of examinations, through which for the next 7 years I was destined to journey. I'm sure some of you who are looking to finals time can sympathize with him. These examinations were a great trial to me. The subjects, which were dearest to the examiners, were almost invariably those I fancied least. I would have liked to have been examined in history, poetry, and writing essays. The examiners, on the other hand, were partial to Latin and mathematics, and their will prevailed. Moreover, the questions which they asked on both these subjects were almost invariably those to which I was unable to suggest a satisfactory answer. I should have liked to be asked to say what I knew. They always tried to ask what I did not know. When I would have willingly displayed my knowledge, they sought to expose my ignorance. This sort of treatment had only one result. I did not do well in examinations. So what is this paragraph about? If you were to summarize this in your own words, what would you say?
My life.
Your life. So basically, you feel what Winston Churchill felt, which is essentially that examiners, they don't actually test you on your knowledge. They sort of test you on how well you can take tests. So this is the struggle of, I think, a lot of people in the education system in America and in other countries too, unfortunately, which is it's kind of a vicious cycle. So we take tests in order to test how much a student knows, but the problem is these tests a lot of times only cover a certain amount of information, and that amount of information may be what the student doesn't know, or it could be that a student only studied that and doesn't actually have a broad knowledge of the topic. Overall, it's not maybe the most effective system. However, unfortunately, it's the only system that we have in the country in order to test the intelligence of students. Is it an accurate test? Probably not. There are much better ways, I think, to test intelligence than just taking a test. So you feel what Winston Churchill felt, and this is back in the 1920s. So not much has changed, unfortunately, in the last 100 years. It was pretty bad then, and it's probably even worse now. So he goes on to say, this was especially true of my entrance exam to Harrow. So think about your entrance exams into schools and colleges. Unfortunately, again, that hasn't changed much in the past 100 years either. So they used to have to take examinations to get into high school and college, and we still have to take examinations to get into high school and college. The headmaster, Dr. Weldon, however, took a broad-minded view of my Latin prose. He showed discernment in judging my general ability. Okay, so what does the word discernment mean? We've had that word before.
It reminds me of the word
So it comes from the word discern. Do you remember what the word discern means?
It means like a part or something.
A part?
Yeah.
Sort of. Okay, so if you are good at discerning something, essentially what that means is you can judge something based off of a certain criteria. So if you have discerning taste in movies or music, you have a certain taste in them, and you are able to discern between good and bad. So here it says the headmaster, Dr. Weldon, showed discernment in judging my general ability. This was the more remarkable because I was found unable to answer a single question in the Latin paper. I wrote my name at the top of the page. I wrote down the number of the question, 1. After much reflection, I put a bracket around it like this, but thereafter I could not think of anything connected with it that was either relevant or true. Incidentally, there arrived from nowhere in particular a blot and several smudges. I gazed for 2 whole hours at this sad spectacle, and then merciful ushers collected my piece of foolscap with all the others and carried it up to the headmaster's table. It was from these slender indications of scholarship that Dr. Weldon drew the conclusion that I was worthy to pass into Harrow. It was very much to his credit. It showed that he was a man capable of looking beneath the surface of things, a man not dependent upon paper manifestations. I've always had the greatest regard for him. So have either of you ever had a teacher or a principal like this who looked past maybe a flaw into what was truly a mark of intelligence?
Kind of.
Sort of. So unfortunately, I think these types of people are few and far between. Dr. Jing, who you guys may or may not have met before, he is very much this type of person. So he doesn't care how well people do on tests. He thinks that's a poor mark, or that's a poor judge of someone's intelligence. What he cares about is he's more discerning about general ability. In other words, is someone working hard? And if they're working hard, basically, what is their strength? What are they trying to accomplish with their lives? And so that's essentially what this guy was about too. So he's very much someone who I would appreciate, I think, having as a teacher, and I think many people would as well. So when he turned in his Latin paper, basically, it had nothing on it except the number of the question, and that was essentially it. Okay, so continuing on. In consequence of his decision, I was in due course placed in the 3rd or lowest division of the 4th or bottom form. So in other words, yes, he did get into the school, but he got into the school as the lowest, at the lowest possible grade. So it'd be like taking a placement test and getting placed in the lowest grade, which, is still good to be accepted even, but it probably would have been better or nicer to have a stronger representation there. So in consequence, I was placed in the 3rd division, or bottom. The names of the new boys were printed in the school list in alphabetical order. And as my correct name, Spencer Churchill, began with an S, I gained no more advantage from the alphabet than from the wider spheres of letters. I was, in fact, only 2 from the bottom of the whole school, and these 2, I regret to say, disappeared almost immediately through illness or some other cause. So the Harrow custom of calling the roll is different from that of Eton, which is the school he was at before. At Eton, the boys stand in a cluster and lift their hats when their names are called. At Harrow, they file past a master in the schoolyard and answer one by one. My position was therefore revealed in its somewhat invidious humility. Okay, so here we have a word that I think you guys will be able to define based off of the context of it. Can you figure out what invidious means? You know, of course, what humility means, so try to determine based off the context what you think that word could mean. Okay, so if you look at the actual structure of the word, is there another word that you can tell that it sounds like based off of etymology? So you know what in means, right?
Inside.
Like inside.
Yeah, in can mean inside, or it can also be a negative prefix. In this case, it is a negative prefix, kind of like when you say impossible or innocuous. Both those mean not, whatever comes after it. And then do either of you remember what vid or viz means? I'll give you a hint, a really obvious hint. This is where we get the word video from. So what do you think
picture?
vid means? What's that?
Like picture?
Sort of. You're close. It means to see. So in this case, an invidious humility, what do you think that means? Humility that is what?
Not seen.
Yeah, basically. So not obvious humility, or it could also mean basically not envied humility. So someone who's in a position that no one really wants to be in. And so that's where he was. So he was the very last student in the row here. And so he was in a position of invidious humility, meaning people didn't see the benefit of it, basically. It was the year 1887. Lord Randolph Churchill had only just resigned his position as leader of the House of Commons and Chancellor of the Exchequer. And let me move over to the next page. And he still towered in the forefront of politics. In consequence, large numbers of visitors of both sexes used to wait on the school steps in order to see me march by, and I frequently heard the irreverent comment, "Why, he's last of all." I continued in this unpretentious situation for nearly a year. What do you think unpretentious means? We've had the word pretentious before.
Unfavorable.
Yeah. So, well, sort of. What does the word pretentious mean? So the word pretentious comes from, I'm not sure if you are familiar with the word pretense, but the word pretentious and pretense are related, and they both have to do with kind of fake or putting on a facade. And it essentially means basically arrogance or putting on a front in order to make yourself look better. So if it was an unpretentious situation, essentially that means he was honest, open, exposed, essentially. So it'd be the opposite of being pretentious. So he was in this poor situation where he was just kind of placed in front of the crowd for judgment and for their derision for nearly a year. However, by being so long in the lowest form, I gained an immense advantage over the cleverer boys. So here's where you can glean some of the wisdom from Churchill. So he was in the lowest form, meaning he was at the very, very bottom of everything, basically. So not only was he in the lowest form or the lowest grade, he was also the last boy alphabetically. So every day, everyone knew kind of where he was in the spectrum of education. Then he says what the advantage was that he received from all this. They all went on to learn Latin and Greek and splendid things like that. But I was taught English. We were considered such dunces that we could learn only English. Mr. Somerville, a most delightful man to whom my debt is great, was charged with the duty of teaching the stupidest boys the most disregarded thing, namely, to write mere English. He knew how to do it. He taught it as no one else has ever taught it. Not only did we learn English parsing thoroughly, but we also practiced continually English analysis. Okay, are you familiar with English parsing? I'll take that as a no. So English parsing is something that I learned growing up in school, but they rarely do it anymore. And in my opinion, it's making students much worse at writing because English parsing is taking the parts of the sentence. So would one of you give me a sentence? It can be any sentence at all. At least 5 words.
Like food.
Huh?
I like food.
Okay, at least 5 words.
Okay, I like food and Nutella.
Okay, let's let's say I like sweet foods like Nutella. How about we say that?
Okay.
There we go. I like sweet foods like Nutella. Okay, so English parsing is basically this. You take a sentence, and then you take each word in the sentence, and you determine what the word is, basically. What kind of word it is, what its function is in the sentence. And then you can also take different sections of the sentence and do the same thing. So the word I is a pronoun, and it's functioning like the subject of the sentence. I might need to make this even bigger. The word like is what? You guys should know this one.
Verb.
The verb, exactly. Sweet is what kind of word?
Adjective.
Adjective. Now foods. I like sweet foods. Now foods is, of course, what kind of word?
Noun.
Noun.
It's a noun. Now what is it functioning as in the sentence?
An object.
Yeah, basically. So I like what? So it would be considered the direct object. And then what kind of word is like? So like is actually a preposition. And then Nutella would be the object of the preposition. So direct object, object of the preposition. Now, basically, he learned how to do this, which is sentence parsing, and then sentence analysis. So sentence analysis is taking a sentence like this and figuring out, number one, is it grammatically correct? Number two, is it the best sentence that we can have? Now, I like sweet foods like Nutella. It's a fine sentence. There's nothing wrong with it. But we could probably make it a little bit better. So if we were, let's say we were trying to write a sentence to begin a paragraph, you can say, and I'm just doing this as an example. Actually, let me do this on another line so I don't mess up the parsing. So, although my sister enjoys savory muffins, I prefer my food topped with sweet treats like Nutella. So here, we've added a dependent clause at the beginning, and then we've added some more information here. In addition, we've also added something called parallelism. We have my sister enjoys, I prefer, and then we have muffins and food functioning as the direct objects in both the sentences. So we've created a more complex sentence structure, still keeping the same basic sentence pattern. So we have subject, verb, direct object, subject, verb, direct object, but this one is a little bit more of a complex sentence. So why did Winston Churchill study this, and why do a lot of students still study this? It's fairly simple. If you were a doctor, the first thing you learn when you go to medical school is the names of the bones, the names of the muscles, the names of the internal organs, where they're located, that type of thing. And then if you are a mechanic and you are building or you're fixing a car, the first thing you need to know are the names of everything under the engine, the names of all the parts of the car, so that when you're fixing it, you don't just say, oh, I think that thing over there by the other thing is broken. No, of course not. You need to have names for these things, and you need to know when you are writing a sentence what exactly is wrong with the sentence so that you can make better. So that's the point of learning something like this. So you may think right off the bat that knowing what a pronoun is versus an adjective is useless. However, if you were to take the sentence and if there were an error and you weren't able to identify it, that would definitely be a problem that you would need to fix. And you can't fix it unless you know what's wrong with it. So that's why he studied this, and that's why he is saying it was so useful. So while other people were learning things that weren't useful, according to him, weren't useful, Latin, Greek, etc., he was learning English. And he says that his teacher taught it like no one else did. So he's going to explain how his teacher taught it. He says that Mr. Somerville had a system of his own. He took a fairly long sentence and broke it up into its components by means of black, red, blue, and green inks. Subject, verb, object, relative clauses, conditional clauses, conjunctive and disjunctive clauses, etc. Each had its color and its bracket. It was a kind of drill. We did it almost daily. As I remained in the third, fourth, 3 times as long as anyone else, I had 3 times as much to do it. So in other words, because he was quote-unquote a stupid boy, although of course we know Winston Churchill was far from stupid, it was just that he did not excel in school. School is not his strong suit. And then he says because he had so much time to do it, because he was in this basic class, he had more practice than anyone else, and he learned it very, very thoroughly. Thus, I got into my bones the essential structure of the ordinary British sentence, which is a noble thing. And when in, after years, my schoolfellows who had won prizes and distinctions for writing such beautiful Latin poetry and pithy Greek epigrams had come down again to common English to earn their living or make their way, I did not feel myself at any disadvantage. Naturally, I am biased in favor of boys learning English. I would make them all learn English, and then I would let the clever ones learn Latin as an honor and Greek as a treat. But the only thing I would whip them for would be for not knowing English. I would whip them hard for that. So, of course, he's making a joke here. He's not literally going to whip them. And so he's saying here that, yes, you can learn all these lofty subjects, but if you don't learn English and all its forms well, then your knowledge, in a sense, will be somewhat useless. Okay, so that was basically all I wanted to go over for that. Let me go ahead and, hi guys, wave to yourselves. So I will go ahead and go now to today's lesson a little bit. It's very entertaining. Okay. You guys can see my screen, right? I would feel really bad if you couldn't.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. I know sometimes in Google Hangouts it'll jump to someone's face rather than the screen, but hopefully if I talk the loudest, it'll show the screen. Let me go ahead and open up today's lesson, lesson 16. Okay. All right. So we are going to jump back into etymology. It's been a while since we've done it, or done this section of etymology at least, and I want to get back into it. So let's go ahead and start with a new root here. We have the Latin root. Now that I just finished talking about why Latin is not important to learn, let's learn a little bit of Latin, guys. So Latin is not necessarily important to learn as far as the grammatical structure, as far as how it was used in ancient times, because of course it is not spoken anymore anywhere. But it is important to learn Latin roots because that's of course where most of our English roots come from. So this one is graph or gram, which means to write. So we don't usually think of geography as having anything to do with writing, but it's made up of geo, which means earth, plus graph, which means to write. And is it actually a writing about the surface of the earth? So each of the following words has something to do with writing. So one of my favorite things to do is calligraphy. So calligraphy comes from the root calli, which means beautiful, plus graph, which means to write. So it's literally the art of fine writing or beautiful writing. She copied a favorite poem in beautiful calligraphy and had it framed. Okay, let's see. Matthew, can you read the second one, cardiogram?
Cardiogram. Noun, a written tracing showing the contractions of the heart. The cardiogram showed a few extra heartbeats.
Right. So I'm going to attempt to do a very probably poor drawing here, but I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So when you're watching, or if you've ever been to a hospital and you hear kind of the beep, 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 this type of thing, this is called a cardiogram. And what does it measure?
Heartbeat.
Heartbeat, exactly. So hopefully it doesn't do this. That's bad news because that means you have no heartbeat. But a cardiogram is that machine that makes the beeping sound. And it literally means to write the heart. So it's kind of a beautiful thing. You're writing what is your heartbeat. And it might not be even all the time and it might speed up sometimes, but it will always be there as long as you're alive. Okay, let's see. Alice, choreography.
Choreography. Chord, dance, plus graph to write. Noun. The writing of a story in dance. The creating and arranging of dance movements, especially ballet.
Mm-hmm. So choreography, you've probably heard the word before. So generally speaking, it refers to dancing that is planned by a person called a choreographer. A choreographer is a person who plans a dance routine and usually enacts it in some way. Okay, epigram. Epigram comes from epi, which means on, plus gram means to write. So an epigram is any short, witty saying. She liked to quote the epigram, "Success is getting what you want, Happiness is wanting what you get. So an epigram is one of those pithy little quotes that I love so much. For example, a quote that kind of goes along with what Winston Churchill said was one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein, which was, I'm trying to find the exact quote here. I probably should have had it up. But Albert Einstein was known for his pithiness. And actually, interestingly enough, he suffered from a form of autism, which made it very difficult for him to interact with other people. But he managed to overcome that in some ways, and he became a good speaker, although he had a tough time with public speaking. He used to get so nervous that he would sometimes be very sick before he spoke in public, but eventually he became much better at it. Okay, here's the quote that I was looking for. So it's one of my favorites. You probably have heard it before. It says, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid." So this is in line with what Winston Churchill said, which is that he believed that he was stupid for a long time because everyone told him he was, because he didn't do well in Latin and in mathematics and other subjects like that. But it had nothing to do with intelligence. It had nothing to do with how smart or dumb or anything else he was. It just had to do with that was not his strength. And of course, Winston Churchill probably went on to do much greater things than any of those other boys who learned Latin and math and everything else. So Albert Einstein was the same way. He did very poorly in school, but yet he became one of the most well-known and influential mathematicians of all time. So keep that in mind. If you ever are struggling in a subject in school, please don't let that determine how intelligent you think that you are. It has nothing to do with that. You being bad at a subject does not have any mark on your character whatsoever. Okay, that was my little epigram for the day, guys. All right, geography. Geography, you know what that is, of course. It's the study of Earth. Graffiti, you know what that is. So graffiti comes from graph, which means to write. So graffiti is crude drawings or writing scratched on public walls. Nowadays, it's seen as an art form, although it is still technically considered a form of vandalism. Graphic means full of vivid details. So a graphic novel is usually a book that is written and heavily illustrated with vivid details. So it's a little bit different than a comic book, which is not necessarily a novel. A comic book might just be pictures with captions. A graphic novel tends to be a novel that happens to have pictures. So the author gave a graphic description of the earthquake. So if you describe something graphically, it usually means in great detail, usually in a horrific way of some kind. Okay, then we have a hologram. So holo comes from holo, which means whole, and gram to write. So a hologram is a three-dimensional photograph made using lasers. So the cover of National Geographic for December 1988 was a hologram. So today, holograms have come a long way. So holograms in media today are actual holograms, meaning it's not just an optical illusion. It is lasers being pointed usually from 360 degrees to show kind of what the person would look like if the person were really there. It's pretty cool to see, actually. And I believe there's even technology to do some kind of hologram on your phone if you have the right kind of setup for it, which is pretty cool also. Monogram. Monogram is one or two letters entwined or written in one design. So on each towel, she embroidered a monogram. So monograms usually have to do with your initials. Mine is CCN. Yours might be something else depending on if you have a middle name or not. So your monogram is kind of like your initials. Monograph, different thing, is a book written about one specific subject. So she published a monograph about the biblical references in Browning's poems. Seismograph is, you've probably heard this word before, an instrument for recording the intensity and duration of an earthquake. So the seismograph recorded an earthquake that registered a 7 on the Richter scale. The Richter scale shows how big an earthquake was, how strong it was. And there's also the noun form of this would be seismography. Seismography is basically the study of the written earthquakes. Then we have topography. Topography is a detailed drawing of a map on the surface features of a region. So if you've ever seen a map in an atlas, a lot of times it will include the mountains and the basins and the plateaus. That's called a topographic map. A topographic map is one that shows all those ups and downs and everything else there. There's also another word I want to introduce you that's a relatively new one called topography. That comes from typo plus graph. A typography is the writing of type. So basically, anything that's done typographically is, generally speaking, not always done on a computer screen, and it's using text, some kind of text, to create some kind of an image. So a lot of advertisements that you see are some form of topography. All right, then of course from this root we also get autobiography, autograph, bibliography, biography, etc., etc. Judging by the word itself, can you guys figure out what cryptography means? Cryptography? What would a cryptograph measure?
Death.
Death? Not death. So what does the word cryptic mean?
Does that mean like secret?
Yeah, like mysterious, basically. So cryptography would be measuring secrets, basically, or writing of riddles, that type of thing. Okay, good. All right, let's move on to some practice here. Okay, some of these words you're going to remember, some of them probably not, but we'll try to do our best. So his fiance hired me to write the wedding invitations in, what would this word be?
Calligraphy.
Calligraphy, right. So the library catalogs all publish blank, including the latest, the history of perfume. I'll go back to show you the word list in case you need it. So the library catalog all publish blank, including the latest in the history of perfume.
Monograph.
Yes, monographs. Good, good. So this one would be, oops, where did it go? There it is. Okay. Yeah, so this one would be monograph. Different than monogram. Okay. His blank showed the need for further medical tests. So remember his measurement of the heart, or his written heart?
Cardiogram.
Cardiograph, right. Many blank appear lifelike.
Holograms.
Holograms, good. Okay. A study of the blank of the region showed many caves and hills.
Topography.
Topography, right, good. The fence around the construction was covered with amusing
Graffiti.
graffiti, good. Children shouldn't watch movies with blank violence or adult themes.
Graphic.
Graphic, good. Then we have the dancers blank made the show a success.
Choreography.
Choreography, very good. Good. The sewing book shows 3 different styles of
Monograms.
I think it is monograms, yeah. The blank recorded 15 small earthquakes in a 24-hour period.
Seismograph.
Seismograph, very good. One of Oscar Wilde's frequently quoted blank is, "I can resist everything except temptation."
Epigram.
Epigram, very good. Knowing blank helps in understanding current world events. So if knowing what happens around the world,
Geography?
geography, yeah, exactly. If you know where things are, it helps. And then the map showed the blank of the countryside. This one I feel like would be topography as well. Let's see. Let me look back to make sure I'm not missing something. Yeah, I think that would be correct. I'm not sure where that came from. Okay. All right, next one. For write correct, or if it's not correct, an X. So number 1, for wedding present, we gave the couple a set of sheets with their monogram on it. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Good, yeah. The earthquake measured 8.5 according to the monograph reading.
No.
Right? What word are they looking for?
Seismograph.
Good. For their senior project, students drew the topography of the trail.
Yes.
Yes, good. Some of Brazil's physical geography is uncharted because it is inaccessible to humans.
Yes.
Correct, good. And then the dance company's calligraphy used arrangements never seen before.
False.
Good, good. Excellent. All right, guys, let's go on to the next lesson. Hyper. So anytime you call someone hyper, basically what you're saying is it's over much or they're too far. They're just too much, basically. So do you know someone who exaggerates? He or she is using hyperbole, which is a figure of speech that uses embellishments and comes from the root hyper, meaning too far, and baen, meaning to step. So you've probably heard such expressions as, I've tried to diet 1,000 times, or your suitcase weighs a ton. These exaggerations, which are used for emphasis, are not meant to be literal. They're called hyperboles. Okay. So we have, first of all, hyperactive, which is where we usually get the word hyper from. If we call someone hyper, what we're saying is they're hyperactive. And it means literally doing too much, doing over much is what the word literally means. So more active than is usual or desirable. So his hyperactive mind allowed him to think about several things at once. Okay, hyperbaton. Let's see. Let me have Alice go ahead and read that one.
Wait, something happened to my screen or something.
Oh, no. Can you see anything? What do you see?
I don't know. Like I tried doing full screen and like screwed up or something.
Oh, let's see. Matthew, are you still there?
Yeah, I can see it.
You can see everything?
I can't get what the. Oh wait. What are these weird different? Oh, found it.
Found it? Okay. It can be kind of tricky sometimes.
Okay, which one?
The hyperbaton here.
Okay, hyperbaton. Noun, overstepping, a figure of speech used inverted word order. Oh.
So, Yoda speaks in hyperbaton. For example, ready are you? What know you of ready? So this was, I think that's an actual line from Star Wars, if I'm not mistaken. So Yoda, what's that?
What know you of ready? What does that mean?
What know you of ready? Meaning, what do you know about being ready, basically? So this was used when he was training Luke originally. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Star Wars, but when he was training Luke in the jungles, and Luke said that he was ready to go, and then Yoda says, ready are you? What know you of ready? Meaning, what do you know about being ready, basically? So hyperbaton is a fun word that basically just means inverting speech order. So, for example, if I said like, so if I said the birds flew in the sky, this actually might not work. So flew, actually, never mind. Let me try something different. That's not a good construction. So if I said he was in love, or you could say in love was he. This would be hyperbaton. So you're just basically switching the word order. It's just a stylistic effect. There's no particular reason for it. except that it kind of creates an interesting sentence structure in some ways. Then we have hyperbole, which we just talked about, which basically means to throw too much. So a figure of speech into which exaggeration is used for emphasis. So her hyperbole caused the audience to laugh. Hypercritical. Let's see. Matthew, go ahead and read this one. Hypercritical.
Hypercritical, hyper, overmuch, plus critic in the art of judgment. Extremely critical. Her hypercritical comments blocked my creativity.
Very good, yeah. So basically talking about being overly critical or extremely critical. Hyperglycemia comes from glycemia, which means presence of glucose and too much. So this means excess sugar in the blood. So signs of hyperglycemia are thirst, a dry mouth, and a need to urinate. So hyperglycemia is a form of diabetes. So those who have diabetes have hyperglycemia. That's why they have to take insulin shots. Okay, hyperopic, Alice?
Hyperopic, hyper, overmuch plus optos seen visible. Noun, condition of the eye in which vision is better for a distant object than for near objects. Farsightedness.
So, right, hyperopic basically just means you can see far away rather than close up. Do you remember, this is from a while ago, what the opposite of hypermyopic is? Or hyperopic? Being this word means being short-sighted or narrow-sighted. Myopic. So myopic means being short-sighted, or you can see near, so nearsighted. And if you're hyperopic, it basically means you can see far away but not up close. So both these words can refer literally to the eyes, but they could also actually refer to something bigger than that. Like, for example, if you describe someone as being myopic in perhaps their vision of a company or something like that, you can say, oh, well, you say that, but you're just being myopic, meaning it's just being short-sighted, not looking at the big picture. Or if someone looks at the big picture but not at the little details, you can describe them as being hyperopic. Hypertension, of course, just means abnormally high blood pressure, like being overly tense. So people with hypertension are at risk for heart disease. And then hypertrophy means basically too much food, so exaggerated growth. His extensive weightlifting led to hypertrophy of his biceps. In other words, growing basically too fast. Okay, let's do a little bit of exercise here. All right, matching for this first one. So hyperactive. What would be the definition we'd use for hyperactive?
C.
C,
More
very
active than is usually desirable.
Good. How about hyperbaton?
H.
Yes, very good. Like what Yoda does. Good. Hyperbole. I'm sorry, we're not on hyperbole. Hyperopic.
D.
D, farsightedness. Good. And then hyperbole.
F.
F, good. Hypertension.
G.
No, that one's a different one.
Oh, it's A.
A, right. Hypertrophy.
B.
Yes, very good. Exaggerated growth. Hyperglycemia.
G.
That one is excess sugar. And then hypercritical, of course, is E, extremely critical. Good. Okay. Because she was blank in most aspects of her life, she had few friends. So what would cause you not to have many friends?
Hyperactive.
Critical.
Hypercritical. Good. Although, Matthew, I guess someone who's too hyperactive probably wouldn't have friends also. Although I think if you were hypercritical, that would lead to fewer friends than if you were hyperactive. Some authors use blank to add humor to their stories.
Hyperbole.
Hyperbole. Good. My eye doctor offered information about the causes of my blank vision.
Hyperopic.
Hyperopic, good. Okay. Using steroids can lead to muscle
Hypertrophy.
hypertrophy, good. Oops. Okay. Along with alliteration, blank is usually found in poetry.
Hyperbaton.
Yeah. Okay. Then we have Dave's doctor was concerned about his blank, fearing it may affect his heart.
Hypertension.
Hypertension, very good. A common disease of chronic blank is obesity. So having too much blood sugar.
Hyperglycemia.
Yes. It's kind of a tough word. Hyperglycemia, good. And then the blank child exhausted her mother.
Hyperactive.
Hyperactive, right. I'm sure you know a few of those types of children. Okay, very good. All right, let's do a little bit of review just over everything, and then we'll move on to the last few lessons for today. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that. If it's a little bit small, let me know. Albert Einstein was a blank mathematician. So I'll ask you to identify the correct word and then tell me what the other word means as well. Let's just go in order. We'll go back and forth. Let's start with you, Alice.
I'm gonna guess on this one.
Okay. You'll get it right if you say the words out loud. I'll give you a hint. So try to pronounce the words, and then I think you'll be able to hear which one is correct.
I think it's the first one.
It is the first one because that is which word?
Ingenious.
Ingenious, which means you are full of genius, basically. The other word, ingenuous, do you remember what that word means?
Does it mean like real or?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. It means genuine, basically. And then the opposite of that would be disingenuous. Someone who's disingenuous is not genuine at all. They're a very superficial person. Okay, Matthew, number 2. My mother is my blank and best friend.
Confident. The second one.
Okay, well, how do you pronounce it?
Confident.
Confidant. Yeah, you're really close. It's kind of the snooty way to say it, but you do pronounce it confidant. And what is a confidant?
Guessing I'm not quite sure. I just know that confident is not a verb. Like the first one was in a noun.
Oh, yes, you are correct about that. So confidant is a person who you can trust in, a person you can tell everything to. Confident, like you guessed correctly, is an adjective meaning you are sure of yourself, basically. Okay, number 3, Alice. Jenna decided to take the job offer and blank to Peru.
Emigrate.
Yes, correct. And what does the other word mean? Innervate.
I think it means to slow down or something.
Sort of, yeah, exactly. It means the opposite of having energy. So if you feel enervated, it literally means you take the strength or the nerve out of someone is literally what the meaning is. Okay, number 4. Having earned straight A's on her report card, Kendra was in a state of...
Euphony.
Okay, so those are 2 different words. Now, if you take this word euphony, it comes from the prefix EU, which means what?
To make better. Or
right, good. And then phon or phon?
Sound.
Exactly. So euphony means good sound. It's the opposite of cacophony. Euphoria means extreme happiness. So in this case, she was in a state of euphoria. She was very happy about it. Okay, Alice, number 5. The burglar left the shop in which one?
The burglar, disarray.
Disarray, right. And what does dissuade mean?
To convince them not to do something.
Exactly, yeah. It's sort of the opposite of persuade. If you persuade someone, you're convincing someone to do something. If you dissuade someone, you're convincing someone not to do something. Number 6. The dictator used a blank forbidding protests?
Edict.
Yeah, the second one, right?
Yeah.
Good. And then, of course, you know what an addict is, so we can skip that. Number 7. Islands are especially likely to develop blank species because of their geographical location.
Oh, is it endemic?
Yes, the first one, correct. Endemic basically means native to a region. Like there are many animals in the United States that are not endemic to the United States. They were brought over from other countries. And then epidemic means what?
Oh, like a sickness or something, like the plague or something.
Yeah, sort of like some kind of a disease that spreads. Number 8, ridding the cabin of ants was a blank activity.
Recurrent activity.
Recurrent, right. And then what does concurrent mean?
Like it occurs at the same time.
Exactly, yeah. It comes from con. Now, do you remember what the root cur, C-U-R-R, means?
Happen.
Sort of. Cur or core means to run. So concurrent means to run at the same time, basically. Number 9. The traveling salesman completed his blank every 2 months.
Circumvent?
It would be his circuit. A circuit is kind of like a routine, usually in like a circular formation. To circumvent something, what does circumvent mean?
I don't know, I guessed on that one.
So circumvent means to basically go around a topic rather than addressing it directly. Or to bypass completely, essentially. Number 10. Physical therapists use blank to help stroke victims regain movement in paralyzed muscles.
Biofeedback.
Biofeedback, very good. Now, biosphere, you can probably guess, is just sphere, which means what?
Like around.
Yes, and then so biosphere is just anywhere around where people live. Like the Earth is one giant biosphere. Number 11, Morse code is considered a blank in the digital age.
Anachronism?
Anachronism. What does anachronism mean?
I think it's something like ancient.
No, let's see if we can take this word apart and figure it out. So it comes from Anna, which means...
Oh, no, it's like before time?
Not before time. That would be prehistoric. But anachronism comes from Anna, which means not, and chron, which means time. So an anachronism is something that is basically in the wrong time. So it's in the wrong time period. It doesn't belong there. So Morse code is an anachronism because why do we need Morse code when we have texting and other things like that? And then what's a euphemism?
It's kind of like a polite way to say something offensive.
Yeah, exactly. Number 12, lots of kids flunked is a blank expression for many students failed.
Colloquial.
Colloquial, right? What does colloquial mean?
It means like a different way of saying it.
Sort of. Colloquial is like the way that a certain region speaks. So in the South, they have a lot of colloquialisms like y'all and other things like that. What does equilibrium mean?
I don't know.
Well, what does equi mean? EQUI.
It means like the same.
Yeah, or equal, right? Exactly. So equilibrium is like a balance, basically. So if there's an equilibrium in the ecosystem, it means there's a balance between the predators and the prey. His comments were blank, not meant to harm his opponent.
Benign.
Benign, very good. And do you remember what misanthropic means?
Hateful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually toward people, right? While we ate dinner, we listened to the blank music of the talented guitarist.
Euphonious.
Euphonious, very good. And again, we had that word before, euphony, and euphonious, which mean good sound. Discordant is the opposite, it means bad sound. The greedy robber took a blank amount of the stolen goods.
Disproportionate.
Disproportionate, very good. Let's see. Number 16. Writer Dorothy Parker is well known for her blank.
Epigrams.
Yeah, definitely not for her holograms. Very good. You have to be a blank to belong to the high IQ society of Mensa.
Genius.
Genius, correct. Correct. And then the other word is what?
Genesis.
Genesis, which means?
Is it kind of like a new race or something?
Not necessarily a new race. Genesis just means the beginning of anything. Each of the blank looks like a human in one physical way. Think of the root for human.
Oh, anthropoids.
Anthropoids, right. And then gentry just means being a gentleman, basically, or being genteel, essentially.
Yeah.
Number 19, almost done, guys. Through studying her blank, she learned that her great-grandparents came from Austria.
Genealogy.
Genealogy, correct. Genealogy. Good. And then we have gentility, which is the same kind of origin that we get gentry from. It basically just means like being in polite society. And then number 20, my pet mouse and cat are friends, which is certainly a blank in nature.
Anomaly.
Anomaly, very good, like something strange. Okay, good. Excellent job, guys. All right, let's do one more. We'll skip this. You don't have to do this for homework if you don't want. Although if you want to, excellent. Okay, let's do one more. I think we have time for maybe this one. So this one is a root that we have had before. We've had it as LOQ. This is a different spelling of it, LOG, and they both mean speech or word. All right, so first of all, words containing the root log have to do with speech. So a monologue is a speech by one person. A dialogue is a speech by two or more people, and a prologue is a speech before a play, and an epilogue is a speech after it. All these words can be spelled without the UE ending, by the way. So if we cut out this UE, dialogue, epilogue, prologue, it's correct. It's only because the English language likes to make things more difficult than they need to be that it has a UE at the end at all. Okay, first word, analogous, which means according to speech, basically. So analogous means similar in some ways, but not in others. The wings of a bird and those of an airplane are analogous, having similar function but a different origin and structure. So analogous is an adjective. What would be the noun form of this, guys?
Analogy.
Analogy, right, which is right in here. So comes from the same root, and it means resemblance in some particulars and unlike in others. So to get his point across, the professor used the following analogy. Cutting class is like paying for a hamburger and then walking away without eating it. Dialogue we talked about before basically just means speech between two or more people. Or it could also be a conversational passage in a play or narrative. So after a long dialogue, we finally resolved our difficulties. Then we have doxology. Doxology is a very fancy word, basically just meaning a religious song, and it comes from dox, which means praise, plus log, which means speak. So up here, the best known doxology is the one sung in Protestant churches, beginning, praise God from whom all blessings flow. All right, epilogue, again, we talked about before, comes at the end, usually at the end of a play, and it's a speech directed to the audience at the conclusion of a play. Shakespeare was famous for these. Most of his plays end in some kind of an epilogue. Monologue comes from mono, which means one, plus log, speech, is a speech by one person, or it's also called a soliloquy. So the monologue beginning, "Is this a dagger which I see before me?" helps to reveal Macbeth's characters. And then prologue, again, is a speech before a play. Romeo and Juliet begins with a prologue that summarizes the story for the audience. Also, any introductory event. The fancy appetizers were the prologue to an excellent dinner. Then we have analog, apology, decalogue, eulogy, logic, and travelogue. All right, let's match these to their correct definition. All right, what is a doxology, guys?
A D.
D, very good. What is an analogy?
A.
A, good. An epilogue?
E.
E, good. A prologue?
B.
B.
Which one? B, correct. Dialogue?
C.
C. Analogous?
G.
G. And monologue?
F.
F. And very good job getting D and G not D and G, A and G not mixed up, because resemblance is a noun, whereas similar is an adjective, and you match them to the correct word. Very good. Okay. All right. I probably will have you finish this one for homework, just doing exercise 2 and 3. So just these two. Shouldn't take you too long to do. It's just a review of all the logs that we're doing. That's the worst drawn circle. We'll call it a box, sort of, I guess. I don't know. Some kind of a circle there. And then let's do a little bit of review here of some of the roots that we've had up to this point. I'll make it a little bit bigger for you guys here. All right. First of all, we have anti. What is anti?
E.
E, against, opposite. Good. Anthrop.
G.
G. Bio.
F.
F.
F, good. Circum.
A.
A. Cron.
C.
C. Cogni.
K.
K, good. Cred.
D.
D. Die, diff, or dis.
I.
I, good. Equi.
J.
J. Gen.
B.
B.
B. And then hyper.
H.
H. Very good, you guys. Excellent job. So I think you've got those down pretty well. All right. We actually, I think, have time for this one here. So we have here logi, which is the study of. We've already learned some of these, but some of these are going to be new. So biology, of course, is the study of life. Geology, the study of the history of the earth. Etymology, which is what we're doing right now, is the study of the origin and development of words. And then almost all words have an O in front of the logi that ends in ology, but two words have A, genealogy and mineralogy, which makes it confusing because the sound is actually exactly the same. Genealogy should be an O, but because the English language is difficult, just like before, when we add unnecessary letters here, we change the spelling unnecessarily. Okay, archaeology. Let's just go super quick through all of these. Matthew, why don't you start it off for us? Go ahead and read archaeology.
Archaeology. Arch, ancient, plus logy, study of. The study of ancient cultures based on artifacts and other remains. Egypt is a good place to study archaeology because the monuments and artifacts are well preserved.
Very good. So archaeology, when I was younger, I always thought I wanted to be an archaeologist because of Indiana Jones. I just thought his job was so cool. Anthropology, Alice?
Anthropology. Noun, a study of the physical, social, and cultural development and behavior of human beings. Shanna studied anthropology's understanding of Aboriginal society and its traditional gender relations.
Good. So anthropology is the study, again, of humankind. Next one, ecology. Ecology is literally the study of home. So the study of the relationship between organisms and the environment. So the ecology of the region showed that the number of wild animals had increased as a result of lumbering. So I love this word here, ecology. That's where we get the word eco. So if you're eco-friendly, you're basically friendly to our home. So ecology is the study of how to make our home, the one we all share with animals and plants and all other human beings, how to make it the best possible place. Okay, embryology. Embryology, Matthew.
Embryology, the study of formation and development of embryos. The science of embryology has determined the exact times when various parts of an embryo develop.
Embryo, right. The embryo is, of course, what the baby is before it comes out. So embryology is the study of embryos. Entomology would be my least favorite career option, I think. Alice, go ahead and read that.
Entomology. Noun, the study of insects whose bodies are cut into 3 segments.
So interestingly enough, oh, sorry, I didn't let you finish. Go ahead and read the sentence.
The entomology class was studying grasshoppers.
Exactly. So entomology, interestingly enough, insects, the reason why they're called insects are because it has in, which means in, plus cut. Sect is also meaning to cut. So insects are literally cut in parts. If you look at an ant, it almost looks like you could easily just cut it into I think 3 parts. It's been a while since I've looked closely at an ant. But insects are ones that you have a lot of different parts to. You can cut them up. Etymology, which is, of course, what we're doing right now, is the study of the origin, the true meaning, and develop of words. So etymology is literally the study of trueness, which makes me very happy because etymology is one of my favorite things. From his study of etymology, he learned many interesting word histories. Geology, we talked about before, is just the study of Earth. Meteorology, you hear about that, of course, on the weather. A meteorologist is someone who studies the weather or things in the air. So it's a study of the atmosphere, especially the weather or weather conditions. The Bureau of Meteorology is recording slight changes in climate from year to year. Ornithology, ornith means birds, is the branch of zoology dealing with birds. And then psychology is the study of the mind, the study of mental processes and behaviors. All right, let's see if we can figure out what these are. What is astrology, guys?
Space thing.
Study of space, right? Bacteriology is the study of?
Bacteria.
Right. Biology, of course, the study of?
Life.
Life.
Chronology?
Time.
The study of time, good. Dermatology?
Skin.
The skin. Genealogy?
Genetics.
Gynecology, remember the root gyna?
Girl.
Women, yeah, the study of women. Mineralogy?
Minerals.
Morphology?
Transform.
Yeah, basically. Paleontology?
Dinosaurs.
Pathology? This is where we get the word pathos from. Remember what pathos meant? Usually I use it with pathos, ethos, and logos. No? No pathos? Pathos means emotion, so it's a study of emotion. Physiology.
It means like body or something.
What's that?
Does it mean like body? Because I know like
basically. It comes from physical. So yeah, just study of the physical body. Technology is the study of?
Like machines.
Yeah, it's hard to say technology is a study without saying of technology. Theology.
Theory?
No, remember what theo means?
Does it mean like thought?
Yeah, God. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you said thought or God, but it's God. And then zoology, the study of? Animals. Exactly. Very good. All right. We'll just do these ones out loud. The human mind is the study of?
Craniology?
No. Although that's not a bad guess, actually. That was pretty good. I'll give you a hint. It's also based off of a character in Greek mythology. Psyche.
Psychology?
Yeah, psychology. Okay. Actually, we'll just say them out loud for sake of time. Weather conditions is? Meteorology. The origin and development of words? Etymology. If you guys had missed that one, I would have just quit on the spot. Number 4. The history of the Earth as recorded in rocks?
Geology?
Geology, right. Ancient cultures based on their artifacts and monuments? Archaeology. Insects? Entomology, very good. Birds?
It starts with an O.
It does start with an O. Do you remember? Ornithology. Study of embryos?
Embryology.
The relationship of organisms to their environments?
Ecology.
Good, very good. Physical, social, and cultural development and behavior of human beings? Anthropology, very good. Okay, so forensic blank applies insect evidence to criminal investigations.
I want to say genealogy, but I'm probably wrong.
No, not that one. Remember what was the study of insects?
Insect.
Enology or something.
No, here, I'll go back so you guys can see. It is?
Entomology.
Entomology, good, yeah. Blank predicts weather forecasts on the course of natural world.
Meteorology.
Meteorology. Blank is a subdivision of developmental biology that studies embryos and their development.
Embryology.
Because blank is the study of the physical, social, and cultural development, it answers the questions, what are we?
Anthropology.
When you are studying vocabulary, you are studying
Etymology.
etymology. And with that, we'll go ahead and call it a class. So go ahead and finish the packet for homework. I believe that there are 3 lessons left. Yeah. Actually, no, only 2. Don't worry about this one. For some reason, this copied, but there's no exercises. It's just the words. So don't worry about that one. Just worry about these pages here. So you're going to do loc and mal. Loc and mal. And then there's this one last lesson. It should go really fast. It looks like it's long. I promise it won't take that long to do. There's only 10 words, I think, total. So it shouldn't take very long at all. All right, guys. Well, I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next Saturday.
All right, thank you.
Bye, of course.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's see how